The story begins with a man named Jacob. Jacob was leading a very good life with his wife Kate and son Joshua, but one day when he was driving home with his friends after a party, one of his friends died in an accident with a truck. Although it was an accident, but he was arrested by the police because he was driving under the influence of alcohol. He is then taken to court and sentenced to 7 years in prison. But when his wife Kate finds out, she cries profusely because she doesn't know how to live without her husband. Then Jacob was brought to a California prison, but Jacob was very afraid, because he sometimes saw in the newspaper that there were murders in the prison, so he was afraid that someone would kill him. Jacob then meets an inmate who is too weak, so at night he is forcibly raped by some men, and Jacob realizes that if he is not powerful, he will never survive in prison. If he can't prove his strength in front of everyone, he might also get raped one day. However, the next morning when Jacob comes to the field, he runs into a man who looks very strong, but Jacob has in mind that he must prove his strength, so Jacob attacks him, but the police stop them after seeing the fight, and both of them were imprisoned in the condemned cell for 30 days. But this fight benefits Jacob, because there was a guy named Bottles who ran a gang. When he saw that Jacob was still fighting despite being a newbie, he decided to take him into his group. Later, when Jacob comes out after serving his 30-day sentence, Bottles offers him to join his team, and Jacob is very happy with the offer because that's what he wanted, but Bottles tells him, "I'll give you security and in return you have to do some work for me," and Jacob joins their team without a second thought. A few days later, his wife comes to meet Jacob, and she tells him that our savings are gone, so now I may have to work to pay for our son's school fees. Jacob then starts doing the jobs given to him by Bottles. One day when he is asked to sell drugs, he evades the guard and sells them, and when Bottles can see he has more courage, he gives him a harder job. Actually, this time he is asked to commit a murder, because Bottles feels that his man is cheating on him, so he wants to kill him through Jacob. Although Jacob had never killed before, he was very scared, so he didn't want to do it, but if he didn't, Bottles would kick him out of the gang, and all the hard work he'd done so far would be in vain. Also, if Bottles kicks him out of the gang, the other gang members can easily kill him, so Jacob is forced to agree to the murder. Then he goes and commits the murder with great courage, but for the first time in his life he was feeling very bad. Then a member of Jacob's gang named Shotgun tells him about a leader named Herman Gomez, who is a very dangerous gangster. But a few days later, when two gangs fight in the prison, then Jacob was forced to participate in this outbreak, and Jacob takes this opportunity to win Herman's trust, because when Herman is about to be killed by an inmate, Jacob saves him at the last moment. But the problem is that his misdeeds are caught on camera, and when the court can see the footage, Jacob's sentence is extended by 7 more years, and Kate starts crying profusely after hearing this, because she has given up now, and Jacob broke with his family. However, Jacob was then brought to another prison, a prison of terrible inmates, where famous inmates were kept. After arriving here, Jacob knows that there is a prisoner named Redwood who is the most dangerous prisoner in this prison. But when he finally meets Redwood, Redwood tells him, "I am not the most dangerous prisoner in this prison. There is a more terrible prisoner in this prison called the Beast, and the Beast is not kept in prison like us, he is kept in a cage in the field, and no one is allowed to meet him." So Jacob decides he's going to meet him at any cost, so he starts a fight with another inmate, but when the police see it, they calm them down by throwing gas on them, and when Beast finds out that Jacob risked his life to meet him, he asks a cop named Robert to bring him to him, even though Beast was in jail. But he was the leader of the biggest gang in the world, so he bought off all the policemen with money, and controlled his entire gang from jail. And after talking to Jacob, Beast likes him a lot, so he makes him his right-hand man, and soon Jacob's sentence ends, which means his sentence is reduced a bit and he is freed. And when Beast knows that Jacob is free, he calls and orders him to, after get out of jail, meet with a gang and make a huge arms deal. But Jacob didn't want to do this, because he wanted to be free and go back to his previous life, but since Beast threatened to kill his family, he was forced to obey. When he got out of jail the next day, he could see Shotgun and some of his friends. Jacob was feeling great after being released from jail, and wanted to go back to his family. A few days later, Shotgun brings Jacob to a party, but suddenly there is a shooting. The attack is just to kill Jacob, although Jacob doesn't understand who did this, but what he realizes is that he has to be careful of everyone around him, or one day they will kill him. Then Jacob comes to meet his wife. Kate gets very emotional after seeing him, but Jacob hands her some money and says, "You will spend it on the family," but Kate doesn't want to take this money, but Jacob leaves without a word. Although he loves his family as before, he has now decided that he will never meet them again. But the next day Kate comes to visit Jacob with her son, and after seeing them, Jacob tells them to leave, because if any gang members see them, they might kill them. But his son doesn't want to go. He tells him, "I never want to go away from my father. We will face all the problems together." Although Jacob also wanted to stay with them, but now he has no option, and when Kate leaves with her son, Jacob closes the door and starts crying. Even if Jacob wants to, he can't go back to his previous life, because many of the gang want to kill him. So Jacob finally decides that he will finish all his enemies, so that they can't harm his family in future, and can't be a threat to him as well. Meanwhile, Jacob's parole officer finds out that there will be a huge arms deal between Jacob and a gang. If he catches him, then Jacob will be taken back to jail. Actually, this news was given to the police by Shotgun, because he was jealous of Jacob. He wanted to remove Jacob and become Beast's most trusted man. But Jacob found out about all these things, so he rushes to Shotgun's house and kills him, after which he checks his phone and realizes that he has already hidden many weapons, so that he can sell them at a higher price later. Then the day finally comes when he makes the deal, but Jacob calls the police on Shotgun's phone, so the police rush in and catch them, and when Jacob is brought to court, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for repeated offenses. After going to jail, the police make Jacob an offer, saying that if you testify against the Beast, all of your sentences will be waived, but Jacob refuses, so he is sent back to jail. Meanwhile, Beast learns that Jacob deliberately screwed up the arms deal, so he summons him and threatens to kill his family, but Jacob was very calm after hearing this threat. In fact, Jacob had already made all the arrangements. He brought a blade and stole the key from the guard so that he could open his handcuffs, so when the officer tries to get him out, he holds the blade to his cheek and imprisons him, and takes the key to Beast's cell. Then he imprisons the guard and unlocks Beast's cell. Beast then attacks him, and a fierce fight ensues between them. But since Jacob has a blade, he easily kills him, then tells the officer, "You will testify that I killed him to save my life. If you don't want to do it, then you must die," because if the officer testifies, the case will be a case of self-defense, so the officer agrees to testify. And that's how Jacob becomes the most dangerous inmate in this prison and the leader of the biggest gang in the world. Now everyone is afraid of him. And since his family is also saved, he informs the police about the rest of the weapons. He then receives a letter from his son, in which his son writes that "Me and my mother are doing very well now, we are living a beautiful life." Then Jacob looks at some old photos, and after seeing them, he starts to cry emotionally. Jacob willingly risks his life and destroys his freedom to kill the Beast, and saves his family, because we know family is everything. And the story ends here with such a beautiful message.